Nicole. I don't think her mic is working, so we'll share.
Oh, actually, now I hear myself.
Yeah. Awesome. So, today we're going to be talking. So, Janae has a new cookbook coming out, and we'd like to tell you guys a little more about it and what is inside of it.
Okay, yeah. Hi, guys. I'm a little nervous.
It's live.
It's live.
It's a little bit like it.
Yes, and like, it's safe, everyone. So, yes, as I said, I'm Janae from Sweet Potato Soul, and I have a YouTube channel and a blog by that name. And I have a cookbook coming out soon, also by that name, Sweet Potato Soul. And so I'm from Georgia, and when I became vegan, I became vegan for the animals, an ethical vegan, but when I went home for Christmas that first year, I was totally like, I hadn't thought about what would it be like to go home for Christmas and not eat my grandmother's soul food that had animal products in it. So I go home and I'm sitting at the dinner table and like all the different things that we do around Christmas time, and I wasn't able to eat like anything. And right then and there, like I didn't crave those foods, but I did crave the experience and like being able to share those with my family. So right then and there, I was like, I'm gonna have to make all this stuff vegan, because I'm gonna have to eat that.
Yeah.
Like I can't be going home and not having my favorite foods and like being with my family and being able to experience it with them. So from that point on, that was in 2011, Christmas. Ever since then, I've been like working on vegan soul food recipes. And so this book is all of that, all my southern soul food veganized classics, like everything from my grandmother's famous pound cake to sweet potato pie to, simple stuff like you have to have collard greens, everything. So yeah, it's not out yet, but it's available for pre-order. Yeah, like everything. Yeah, if you go to my website, there's a page, like if you go to sweetpotatosoul.com, you can click Cookbook, and then you can pre-order it on like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that stuff.
And what's the recipe you're most excited or most proud of?
Well, that I haven't already shared, because that sweet potato pie is my favorite, but I have it on my blog. But that pound cake I just mentioned, that one. I'm really craving that right now, yeah.
I love pound cake. I cannot wait to do that. I love what you said about going and spending time with your family and realizing that you can have any of the food and missing like the social aspect of it. Because people don't realize that veganism interferes with that social aspect of eating. And people always say, don't worry, you'll know someone's vegan when they tell you, because we eat 3 times a day. And it's bound to come up, at least. I mean,
Yeah, I eat more.
I guess.
I don't know about you.
3 times a day and like several snacks.
Yeah, as much as possible. No, but that's so true. I mean, and I think for a lot of people are like me, like we become vegan, and like I became vegan, I was living in New York, and I was working at a vegan restaurant. So for me, I'm surrounded by other vegans. By the time I became vegan, like everybody that was working with was already, so it was the norm. Yeah, and nobody questioned me, like none of my friends at work questioned me about it, so it was really normal. So there wasn't any time where I thought, oh, what about like Thanksgiving? What about Christmas? Like, how am I going to share those holidays with my families, until I got home and it hit me. And I think that happens to a lot of people. So they go home, they visit their family, their grandma, their mother's cooking, or their father's cooking, whoever, and then it's like, oh my god, I can't say no, and then they're not vegan anymore because they're like, I realize I can't give up this dish. But it's really just about finding a way to prepare that dish vegan, because most people are not craving the actual animal product. It's usually the spices, the preparation. Right. And it's all, the family aspect plays a huge part in how much you like. Like if your grandmother made it, that's part of why you like it.
It's in your blood.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you can replicate it, but it's even better when you replicate it and are able to share with your family. They're able to vouch for it. They're able to approve of it as well. Then it really,
becomes who you are.
Yeah, it becomes part of everyone's time.
That's a really great segue to talk about what our topic for today, which is
I mean, I didn't have all these recipes until like this year. Yeah, I turned in my manuscript in the beginning of this year. So it's not like I overnight was able to create these recipes. But for me, as an ethical vegan, I already had made the connection between like, I quit looking at animal foods or animal products as food.
Right.
So I didn't necessarily feel like I was sacrificing, but I do understand that not everybody is drawn to it from the ethical standpoint, so they're not going to have that same reaction, way of thinking of it as I did. But I think that's just why it's really important to I mean, if you cook, to try to make those foods yourself and like share them with your family. Because the whole thing about like culture is it's always changing, right? And it's never like your grandmother might make one thing one way right now, but her grandmother made it probably a different way. You know, as time changes, you know, food changes. So I don't see why it can't still change, you know?
Have you ever had a negative reaction from someone in your family when you came home on a holiday, you know, wanting to be vegan? And did you ever feel like that affected a relationship negatively for you?
Not so much. Like, so it's funny. My dad, he was just here. He just left yesterday morning. He was visiting, but my dad was raised vegan, but I was not. My dad was, and then by the time I was born, he was not vegan anymore. And so I always knew what veganism was, and I have family members who have always been vegan. But even though, like, when I became vegan, my dad knew what it was. It wasn't foreign at all to him, but he was a little bit skeptical. Like when I would start preparing food, he was like extra hard on me, on everything I made. Because he's like, oh, I do it this way. You know, I remember when I was growing up, we did it that way. So he wasn't, it wasn't like he was saying, why are you vegan? This is bad for your health. He was like, well, you should be doing, this is how you are vegan. So it's a different way. And it was actually challenging for me because I'm like, you don't know. But, I mean, yeah. But my mom and my grandmother, no. They're not vegan, my mom and my grandma. So we grew up never having eating, other mammals. But we did eat chicken and we did eat fish. So my grandmother and my mom, since I've become vegan, they've given up all birds. They do still eat sea animals, though not very often. And dairy also, my grandmother's given that up. And so my family over time, I mean, I've been vegan for over 6.5 years now, and then over the time that I've been vegan, they have given up more and more animal products. Yeah.
And do you think that that's because of something that you said to them? Have you maybe explained things to them?
Oh yeah, I always do. I mean, I make the connection for them between, like my mom, she quit eating mammals when she was, I think, 13. And it was because my grandfather is a hunter, and he would bring home the dead animals and butcher them and do all that in their basement. And my mom realized that, here are these deer, and there was deer, raccoons, squirrels, all sorts of stuff. My mom realized, oh, that's like the same thing as that cow. She didn't realize with the birds, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, that's why she gave up. So I've been able to talk to my mom, make that connection further for birds. And she doesn't eat them anymore. But the biggest challenge with my family, and I think what a lot of people, is people have a very, 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 very hard time sympathizing with not all sea animals, but with fish. Yeah. They're just like automatons. They're like insects.
They don't think they have brains or feelings.
Right. So,
but go fishing once and you'll
I literally just said that the other day, yeah.
That they do.
Right. That's hard, but I mean, that's my current challenge.
Yeah, it is hard. I find the same thing with my mom because she doesn't understand the fish thing either. It's hard. But that's awesome that they're open to listening to what you have to say.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that at first with their families, is trying to get them to understand where they're coming from. Do you have any advice on how to approach that in a sensitive way? Right.
Well, so for me, I'm really lucky. I know I'm lucky because my family has been so open over these last, like I said, over 6.5 years, and they've never put up a fight. However, I do have other friends who have had a different, reaction from their families. And so, from looking at other people's experiences and just like, for me as someone who was not always vegan and new vegans and, what worked on me was one, just being a good example. Obviously, you want to show that you are an example of health. Even though you might be an ethical vegan, other people are not going to look at you and like see how nice you are to animals. They want to see how good do you look, how good do you feel, and like how can I get some of that. And so being a good example, and then also, having conversations with people, whether it's, connecting animal suffering with their pets who they love, or, whatever. I mean, everybody has a different way in, so it's really talking to people in a way that's, customized to how they receive information best.
Right. It's more about planting seeds they can relate to rather than making them convert overnight.
Right. And it's really sad, but I mean, I'm sure everybody has this experience. You tell your loved one, your parent, whatever, to do something and you're like, Mom, this is bad for you. Here are all these studies. I found them on the internet, peer-reviewed. Dr. Oz said so. You shouldn't eat this. And then she's like, I can't hear you, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. And then Dr. Oz or so-and-so down the street says the same thing. And they're like, oh my God, did you know? I'm like, I've been telling you this for like
Obviously.
years. So sometimes you have to plant the seeds and then they'll get the full picture from someone else.
Yeah.
And you gotta be like okay with that. You have to I used to be more stressed out about the fact that my parents are not fully vegan. And my dad even he says he said 95% vegan, I think the other day. He said he can't call himself fully vegan, but he's pretty much is fully vegan, he says.
Right.
But I have been stressed out about his health for the last couple of years because his doctor said he was pre-diabetic. And he is a man who knows the right thing to eat. But, it's not just about knowing. It's about, there's all these other things that influence what we actually do, right? So I used to be stressed out about that. But now I'm learning to just let go. Like, it's not my life. I do the best I can do, like loving the person and being there for the person. But you really can't make anybody do something that they don't want to do on their own.
Yeah. I think that's so true.
It is really hard when it is someone you care about so much and you are coming from such a good place where you really, know the information and you know how to help them, but you don't want to be too pushy, and it's kind of it becomes a negative thing because you seem really annoying and pushing information in their face that they don't want to hear, and they just want to, believe that the way that they're living their life and the way that they're eating is fine, and when you tell them something else, it's like not what they want to hear.
Right. I know, and that feeling is so sucky. But that's life, right? Like, people are out and about doing all sorts of things, and we're like, gosh, but if you only did it that way. I feel like life is always going to be like that. People are always going to do things that is not the right thing, and it is harder when it's your loved ones, but,
you can't control other people's actions, but you can control your own and be the best example that you can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You gotta be positive.
You gotta be good.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get in on that and get into the vegan lifestyle.
So we actually recently did an episode of The Vegan View where we talked about trick-or-treating as a vegan and whether or not it's okay to let your kids trick-or-treat or what you should tell them when all their friends are. You don't want to give them a complex. But at the same time, you don't want them to be eating things that aren't vegan. So how do you think that you will handle that when you have kids someday?
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, we have to figure out. So now we live here. Oh, we live in LA, right? So I assume that it's probably easier to be a vegan parent in LA.
Oh yeah.
Maybe you can have a vegan group for the kids to go trick-or-treating all together, certain homes. I don't know. And if it doesn't exist, maybe I'll put it together for my child.
That too, yeah.
Right?
We'll help you.
You think? Okay, we're good, right? But also, like at school, I imagine when I have children and they go to school and they not everybody or all the candy at school is vegan. I mean, I feel like I can't really tell them don't eat that. I will give them the information. And tell them why we don't eat that stuff at home and what it means and just be honest. And then, like, if they make the choice to eat it, then that's their choice. Like, even if they're a little kid and they're not that smart, still, like you said, you don't want to give them a complex. You want them to make their own decision. You want them to learn how to make their decision. You want them to feel the consequences on their own. So, I mean, that part I feel like I'd be pretty hands-off. Or not hands-off, but give them the info and, like, let them make their decision. But when it comes to trick-or-treating, when you were going from house to house, coming home with like 20 pounds of junk, that is a bit over the top. Because you know the kid has to eat all the candy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, as a child, when I was a kid, there's no way I would come home with that candy and not eat it over the course of the next year.
I would too. I would eat it in like the next week.
Oh my God.
And
I
even
would
if it's
spread
vegan
mine out.
candy, it's not healthy.
No,
Have you guys
right?
seen that Jimmy Kimmel where he takes the parents like pretend to take the kids' candy
Oh my
away
gosh.
and they lose their minds
Yes.
and they're like, just kidding, and the kid is like
Yes.
horrified.
You can't
The kid's
take it
like
away.
permanently scarred
Right.
for life.
Right. But I think, like, I mean, I don't have children, okay, but I think for myself, okay, like when certain things I know I'm not going to eat because I know, like, it's not good for me and I don't want to get a taste for that. I don't want to get my body craving that. So I'm just going to stay away from that, you know? So I assume that in the home, if you don't give the kids sugary candies, even if it's vegan, sugary, junky stuff, then they're not going to develop a taste for it, I assume. So in our home, we're definitely, like, no sodas. I don't care if it's vegan. No, none of that. You have to eat that stuff outside of the house.
Right.
I have a question, kind of like switching topics a little bit, because it sounds like you have a very open-minded and supportive family, and this is something I'm still dealing with, going back to kind of like cultures and traditions. I have a Mexican grandmother because I'm half Mexican, and I feel like for her, the way she shows love is by feeding people. And my whole life, I would always know I have to go to Abuela's house hungry, because if I don't eat everything that she makes me, like, she's going to think I don't love her, she's going to be mad at me. And so now, since going vegan, I've been vegan almost 3 years, and I still have anxiety about going to her house. I feel like I'm always looking for excuses, and then meantime, I'm not spending as much time with my grandmother because food is like such an important thing in her life, and she just doesn't understand veganism at all. She doesn't think it's healthy. And even she cooked me sweet potatoes the other day, and I was eating them and then I get to the bottom of the thing, and it's like clearly melted butter, and I was like, oh, like, how do I tell her this? This is just, she doesn't get it.
Right.
But if I don't eat it, she's gonna be mad at me, you know? So
Right.
I don't know. How would you approach something like
Oh,
that? Do you
God.
have any advice? Like, I'm still
I
dealing with
don't
this. I think a
know.
lot of people can maybe able to relate to something like that.
That's really, 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 really hard. My Nana sometimes messes up. She doesn't do it on purpose, though, but she sometimes, like if we're at her house, she's cooking for us, and she's like, I made you guys a salad, and I bought this salad dressing at Whole Foods, and it's avocado dressing. Remember that, Max? He remembers that. That's my fiance in the front. And we're like, oh, thanks, Nana. Let's look at the ingredients. Number 3, number 4 ingredients, like milk something. Or, oh, Nana, I'm sorry. But I feel bad, and I know I'm going to hurt her feelings. So, like, Nana, you didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Nana.
Trying.
They're trying. So
Go on Instagram, Grandma.
I know, Grandma, come on. Didn't you read? Yeah. But anyway, I mean, I really, truly do not know. I don't know.
Maybe you have to come
That's
out
tough.
with your own cookbook.
Yeah, but the thing is, like I said, I'm lucky, right? So some grandmothers, some family members aren't open. Like, there's this whole, I do recommend people, they go home for Thanksgiving. What are you going to do? What are you going to eat? Bring food. Prepare
Yeah.
food, or pick something up at a restaurant if you don't cook, and take it to your family for them to eat also, so you can all share. But some, especially women, older women, don't want you to do stuff for them.
Oh, yeah.
They want to do the cooking. So it's not like you can just show up at not necessarily your grandmother's house and be like, Grandma, don't cook, I'm cooking. Because she wants to cook. So I don't know.
Oh no, I showed up with my package of soy rizo, and she was like so offended. I was
Right.
like, sorry, I'm trying to help.
Right. I think it's just like, and also I don't know. Have you guys experienced that?
My
It's
family,
more common, you know?
my family, when I first went vegan, was not vegan at all. My mom is from the line of dairy farmers, and so like everything we had had milk in it. My dad's Indian, so milk and yogurt is very big in Indian culture. Like everything, all the sauces, the masalas all have milk or yogurt or some kind of marinade. So they thought it was absolutely psycho, and I just had to. It was a shocking experience. I realized I couldn't participate in all these special family events, but there's no way I was not going to be vegan. So I went out on my own and I bought all this stuff, and I made my mom's French Canadian, so I made vegan tortillere, which is like a bean pie, and I made it like the fattiest, saltiest, vegan, unhealthy food, and everyone wanted some of mine because the vegan food is beautiful. It's colorful, it's vegetables, it's really gorgeous to look at, and people don't realize how delicious it is. And same thing with Indian food. I just tried to substitute for really fatty plant milks like coconut, find some good soy yogurts, and just kind of sneak it in. You don't even have to tell them it's vegan. And I was like, oh, I made something for you to add to the table.
Right.
And just kind of sneakily let people eat vegan food. And now my whole family's vegan, and it's really because...
So jealous.
Wow, the whole family?
Well, yeah, I didn't talk to them about it at all.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so cool, I'm vegan. I was drinking my own Kool-Aid, and they were so interested because I wouldn't tell them anything about it. They went and researched it on their own.
Wow.
And then they called me and they're
I
like,
like that technique.
They're like, yeah, I have to go vegan too. So
That's
Two
interesting.
family goals over here.
Yes. Yes, I like that.
I actually
someone
did
has a
something-
question?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did something similar. My boyfriend's having a family get together, and I was really busy. I said I would bring a dish, and then I complained to him. I was like, I really want to make something, but I don't have time. And he's very sweet. He's filming right now. Hi. And he was like, I'll make it for you. And I was like, you'll make a vegan dish? And so I made like a super easy mac and cheese. And it was so good. It was better than when I do it because he's like really heavy-handed with the seasonings and stuff. And so he was really proud of himself. Like he had made a vegan dish, and then everybody ate it and everybody loved it. So it was a really great way to introduce a vegan thing where I didn't have to be like, eat this vegan food. They all wanted to, and they also just wanted to try his cooking because he doesn't cook very often. So that was a really fun thing.
That's a good one.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, that was one of my first Thanksgivings being vegan, and so I brought mashed potatoes to my house, and I made vegan mashed potatoes. So my mom had the regular mashed potatoes, and I had the vegan mashed potatoes, and everybody loved the vegan mashed potatoes. They were gone in 2 seconds. And so the next year, my mom asked me what she could use instead of things for all the sides, so she made all the sides vegan. So I think that's a great
awesome.
way to like kind of plant the seed, is just bring maybe your favorite dish that's your specialty and kind of sneak it in there.
Yeah. I'm wondering also for like with your grandmother and this conundrum, like maybe even giving her, she put the butter at the bottom, maybe even just giving her the vegan butter instead, and letting her say, Grandma, this is what I like to use. Let her use that.
I was like thinking about it sitting here. I'm like, I think I need to make it into like a bonding experience where like I come over and I ask her to show me how to make what she makes because I want to learn how to make it vegan.
Can you vlog that? Because I would watch it.
Abuela learns how to cook vegan.
Abuela goes vegan.
Gosh, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, but has anyone had a negative circumstance where they did bring a vegan dish and didn't get a good response? Because that's happened to me before too. I just try to bring something that's not a salad because I brought a salad one time to an event and nobody ate it, and it was a really good salad with a really good creamy avocado dressing. It's actually her recipe. And I was very offended, but then I was like, okay, if I'm going to bring something vegan, I should probably veganize something that's comfort food.
Yeah,
And
recognizable.
So the mashed potatoes were more of a hit, so I would suggest doing that instead.
Yeah, a lot of people, we've been noticing a lot of people they don't feel comfortable eating things like beans, and whole grains.
Yeah.
So maybe you got to go for the junkier end. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, since you just came out with this cookbook and it's kind of the holidays are coming up, people are going to want to know how to recreate some of their favorite things. What's your approach as a recipe creator? How do you take something like sweet potato pie or mac and cheese and then kind of just break it down and make it vegan? How do you go that way?
Okay, well, first of all, you have to figure out, okay, what specifically am I trying to replicate? Because cheese, I'm sorry if anyone still eats cheese, but cheese I think is so nasty. I think it's so foul, and I think it's so like off. Like, so I definitely don't want a vegan mac and cheese to taste that, like have that like
Congealed.
yeah, that quality. No. So, but I do want it to have the cheesiness, you know? So like that umami, that's like sort of the bitterness, sort of like that tartness. So, but I know it's not going to taste like non-vegan mac and cheese because you cannot replicate that part of dairy. Like that, to me it tastes like dirty. You can't replicate that and I don't want to. But anyways, so what am I trying to replicate? The creaminess of it, the cheesiness of it. So you want people to be like, oh, I can tell this is not dairy, but cheesy. The flavors, right? So my grandmother, I don't do like the 3 cheese one because, I mean, 3 cheese, if you're doing 3 cheese mac and cheese, like Southern soul food style, basically they're literally using 3 different cheeses. So as a vegan chef, you would just make like 3 different vegan cheeses, and I don't think that's too necessary. But really, you want the right spices. I do like roasted garlic in mine. Sometimes I do smoked paprika. Of course, nutritional yeast. The texture. How do you get that right texture? I'll do arrowroot and non-dairy milk. Mac and cheese is an easier one since so many people have done it. So when I first started playing around, I was just using other people's recipes and seeing like how can I make this better. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to like sweet potato pie, that one took me a very long time because if you look at other sweet potato pie recipes, most of them are made with tofu because you need something to replace the egg, which firms up like the custardy filling of the pie. But so you could use tofu, but if you use tofu, it's going to taste like tofu. Yes, it's going to, even if it's subtle, it's not going to taste right. So I, over time, figured out that if you use butternut squash, so butternut squash, regardless of how you're using it, if you put it in the refrigerator, if you put it in the fridge for a while to set, it'll thicken. So if you use butternut squash and arrowroot powder or cornstarch powder as a thickener, it will thicken to the perfect consistency and, you know, be a perfect replacement. But all recipes, like all these non-vegan, for me, like soul food recipes, if all of them, it's usually like a jump off. Those 2 are more difficult, by the way. If it's something like fried chicken, that's easier because a lot of these recipes, most of the ingredients are already vegan. It's just that they'll like use chicken in it or they'll use shrimp. But like fried chicken recipe, the batter, aside from, you know, maybe you'll use buttermilk, but making vegan buttermilk is easy. And then an egg substitute for you could do like Fax egg, or you could do like I use just arrowroot powder. But all the spices are vegan. The flour is already vegan. So you're just really just you could just use a Paula Deen recipe if you want and just make that vegan and change swap the chicken for tofu or mushrooms or cauliflower. So that's an easier one. Yeah.
Do any of you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Open up for discussion. Does anyone else think that veganism has ruined their traditions or culture, anything like that?
You got it.
Hi. After the last vegan fest I took my mom to, she became vegan.
Oh, that's
and so
awesome.
she's been, and we have like a Dominican Italian background, and so she's actually been changing all of the recipes over. And so
Awesome.
it's just been taking her spices and just changing the protein.
Yeah.
And she just started cooking with tofu. So, I mean, she's doing amazing.
That's
and
so cool.
she just started, she just looks 10 years younger, and she's healthy, so.
Congratulations.
Oh, she's almost 80. She wants everyone to know her
Good
age.
job. You look awesome.
You look amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing
love
that
that.
most people don't
so
realize,
good.
that it's the spices and the sauces, and it's actually the plants that make the flavor, not the dead animal that makes the flavor. So if you just kind of like rework it into something else, and sometimes that's hard because people are so used to what they're used to, and it's hard to change their mind, but it slowly, little here and there, make a little difference, I think.
That's so awesome. Congratulations.
You look amazing.
We have a Vegan View Facebook page, and I would love if you would go on there and post some of those recipes because I love Dominican food. That would be really fun. Yeah, thank you. That's so cool.
I made lasagna without cheese, and it was, oh my God, to die for.
I want that recipe.
What was the secret ingredient?
I put vegetables. I cook my meat. I mean, no meat, but I prepared the vegetables, and I put tomato sauce, but my own with a lot of spices and herbs. And my lasagna was out of this world.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yum. I want that.
I'm hungry now.
Right? Me too.
I think they have food here.
That's so true.
they
When
might.
you think
Have
about
lasagna though.
when you think about all the spices and stuff like that, it's plants. No one remembers Italian food or Indian food because they're like, oh yeah, that chicken is awesome. They're like the oregano, the cardamom. They're all plant foods and they're delicious.
Yeah. I always feel like if I lived with my family or even like in the same state, then it would be a lot easier for them, you know? So many people like in life, not just my family, but people I meet often will say, man, if I had a vegan chef like you, I would definitely be vegan. It's like, oh, well, you could do this for yourself, but for a lot of people, they don't cook. That leap is just too big. So it's like, the more of us who are vegan, the more of us who are talking about it, it'll make it easier for other people because it'll make it more normal. Obviously, those ingredients will be more readily accessible. And they'll just like understand that you can make a vegan lasagna.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about living with someone and how it's so much easier because we just filmed a video about significant others and we kind of figured out that the ones of us who lived with our significant others, it was so much easier to convince them to eat vegan because you're constantly putting really good vegan food in front of them. They're like, oh, this isn't bad, this is good, you know? So you kind of open their eyes. Like if they're presented with it every day, it's a lot easier to convince them instead of just seeing them once or twice a year at holidays, you know?
Yeah, I think because a lot of people just don't know how to approach it, especially with like my parents. They've lived their life so long not being vegan that they just don't even know. They eat out a lot too, so they just don't even know how to go about it. So
I think that's why things like YouTube and Instagram are so important to the vegan movement because you see that visual aspect, you hear someone talking about it, you see them live their everyday life, and something about seeing something so like unfamiliar like veganism is in a way that's so practical and easy and effortless is really comforting, and I think it gives people the courage to take that leap and become more plant-based.
But I think it can be really hard, especially when you are in situations like a family gathering or with a lot of friends when you're the odd man out as the vegan and you kind of sometimes question yourself like, what am I doing? Everyone thinks I'm weird. Everyone thinks what I'm doing is wrong. So it's nice to have at least like your social media, you know, even if it's just an online Facebook group of other vegans to come back to and, you know, kind of remember why you're doing it because it can be hard to be put in a situation where you feel weird.
Right. I was in a group of people yesterday and they were all talking about barbecue and their favorite barbecue places and they were going into detail about their barbecue places and I was just silent because I had nothing to contribute and I finally just like snuck away and then eventually they made their way back over and started talking about barbecue again. And finally, one person knew I was vegan, and he was like, "When was the last time you ate meat?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it because everyone's talking about barbecue. But I just wanted to ask you, have you ever had a situation where somebody's approached you and kind of made you feel like the odd man out about being vegan, and how do you respond to that? Yeah.
Not recently. When I first became vegan, I was an actress. That's why I was working at a restaurant because that's what we do.
Yeah.
But I lived in New York and I was an actress and I was on set filming a commercial. I think it was like lunchtime, scheduled lunchtime, and maybe I pre-requested that they have vegan options or something. I don't know. But I ended up telling the group that I was vegan. And this one man, I still remember it because it was the first time anyone's attacked me for like no reason. He got so angry with me and like so offended. And I was not trying to talk about it. I wasn't trying to, convince anybody. I literally was just like, oh, I'm vegan. That's why I'm not eating that. And that was probably that's things like that happened, more like in 2011, but not so much for me nowadays. But people definitely, I've been in groups of people where they're like you're saying, talking about barbecue or talking about some other, in my mind, horrible, heinous thing, and they're like laughing about it, and I feel like, oh my God, what is happening? I'll usually try to remove myself as well, though, because then it's like, you can't say, you guys are murderers, because then they'll just laugh at you and think, oh, vegans are crazy. Yeah.
I think there was like half of me that wanted to be like, ew, that's disgusting, and like go crazy vegan on them, and then there was the other half of me that wanted to be like, well, I know, I used to eat barbecue too, so it's fine, talk about barbecue, but I really didn't want to hear it at the same time, but it's kind of like you don't want to feel like that odd man out. And even one girl was like, before I even opened my mouth to say, oh, I don't really want to talk about it, she was like, ew, vegan. And I was like, oh yeah, I was like, well, I don't want to talk about it right now while you guys are talking about that. And then she was like, oh, sorry. Like, she apologized after I said that, but it was so interesting that before I had even opened my mouth and I didn't even volunteer the fact that I was vegan, she had that reaction.
Because people feel uncomfortable because they know better.
Yeah.
I had a really interesting conversation. So I did this TV show in March, and when I went to it wasn't an audition, but I went to meet like the producers and the hosts and everything. We were sitting around, and I was like a host, or I was like a guest, not a guest host, just like a guest of the episode. And the whole season, my episode was the only vegan one they were going to do, only vegetarian, only non-meat, period. And so we're sitting around talking about it and talking about the food that we're probably going to prepare on the episode, yada yada yada. And the host was like, so why are you vegan? And I love that when people ask me, because I tell them, because I'm an ethical vegan, da-da-da-da-da. And then while we were on set, we ended up, like, after shooting one day, we had dinner, ended up talking for hours about, like, the ethics of it and about the, all the different angles to approach it, from animal exploitation, yada, 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 and, like, him trying to... But I think people more and more nowadays are aware that it is not, like, factory farming's not cool, and a lot more people are even uncomfortable with small scale farming, with the idea of just like bringing someone, like having someone be born so you can kill them. Yeah. Like, a lot more people understand that that's kind of messed up. So for some people have reactions like that woman, but then other people might have a reaction where they're trying to like work through it on their own. And I feel like when you have those conversations with people, if you can have like a real conversation and not turn into an argument, then that's part of planting seeds, because they'll think more about it, I think. Yeah.
I think so too. I was thinking about how far back my seeds started being planted. I've been vegan for 3 years, but I remember back to my sophomore year of high school is when the first person ever told me that they were vegan, and I think that's when the seeds started being planted, and slowly, it took me almost 10 years, but then it just like, I think you have to flip a switch in your brain to care. You're so used to being conditioned to think it's normal and to not care, and then even if it takes a while for the seed to be planted for some people, and then all of a sudden your eyes are open. Even walking through the fairgrounds today, I was telling the girls how the first time I went to the Orange County Fair my whole life, because I'm from Orange County, and I came to the Orange County Fair a couple of years ago for the first time as a vegan, and so eye-opening to see how many dead animals and animal exploitation are just everywhere. When you don't look at it that way, it just seems normal,
I noticed when you were speaking earlier that instead of saying like steak or beef, that you say mammals, and that you don't say fish, you say sea animals. and you don't call poultry, you say birds. And I was wondering, is that a purposeful thing for you so that you can sort of plant a seed in someone's mind so that they can make that connection, or is that just you, or is that on purpose?
It's strategic.
I noticed.
I
like it.
love it. I'm going to steal it.
Because I used to say, like, even people email me, I'm working on it. I can totally understand. I was not always vegan. I went through all these things. I had these same ideas as people who are not vegan. I get it. But people will email me and be like, I'm just eating seafood now. And then I'll write back like, well, I get it. But maybe this is why you want to give it up. And I always use that language. You don't, because if you call something food, you're going to think of it as food.
Yeah.
And if you call pork, a pig pork, then you're not going to think of it as a pig.
McRib, that doesn't sound like an animal.
And so I think that's strategic in a way. I think that is purposeful to separate it out. So I think so we just need to be like honest with ourselves. So seafood part, like calling it, sea animals, was the most challenging for me because it was the most ingrained in my mind. So I had to practice only saying that. And also chicken. So a chicken is a chicken, yeah. But most people, when they think of chicken, they don't think of the bird. So I say bird now.
It's really separating a living being from a thing.
Exactly.
I think language is so indicative of how we see things and people. You can tell a lot by a person about what language they choose to describe people and living things.
And I love that sea animals includes the word animals, because I meet so many people that say, I love animals, I love my dog, but then they eat meat still. And I think it's because of that we use these euphemisms for our food that they don't make that connection. So I love that. Sea animals is great.
It's a really nice way to kind of get them thinking without being that pushy vegan. I like it.
More compassionate.
We have a question over here.
So when it comes to dating, do you tell on the first day, the first 5 minutes, that you're vegan?
I'm not the right person to answer this.
Who's dating?
My boyfriend, when we went on our first date, I told him on the first date that I was vegan.
Yeah.
He was really cool about it.
Yeah, I've been in a relationship for a while, but I think if I weren't in a relationship and I were to be dating, I would tell them right away, because it's such a big part of my life and it affects every aspect of me, and I think you learn a lot about a person just from that alone. And I think their reaction to me telling them that would tell me a lot about them as well, and if I wanted to continue seeing them.
I've had a lot of guys approach me, and within a couple seconds of us talking, I'm dating someone, so I'm obviously not going to go out with them. If I tell them I'm vegan, the interest is over right away. But I always think if you're bringing it up in a kind way and just a casual way as something you do personally, and they don't appreciate that about you, why would you want to be with that person anyways? It's like I said last year when we were talking about veganism and dating, it's kind of like your culture in a way. And if someone told me, no offense, I don't like Indian food, I would be extremely deeply insulted. Just like if someone told me, no offense, I hate vegans. Like, that's a part of my soul. And
But people do say stuff like that.
yes.
And I say bye.
With me, though, right off the bat, I told him I was vegan, but then I also kind of tried to show him other parts of my life, so it wasn't like I was like this, I tried to show how it was one part of my life that was a big part of my life, but it wasn't my whole life, to show him that it wasn't like this crazy thing and that it was very easy. And when we would go to restaurants, a lot of times we would go to vegan restaurants, but a lot of times we would go to regular restaurants. And he was always trying to find things on the menu, which I thought was very sweet. And again, it told me a lot about him, but I wanted to show him that I can find something vegan on any menu. And I actually think that's fun. So it was kind of cool. And he could see like, oh, this is something that is a very practical thing in life. And I wanted to be a good example. Yeah.
When my fiance and I started dating, neither of us were vegetarian or vegan, for that matter. So we kind of like we started living together after I became vegan. So that's So that's part of like you said before, it makes it easier, right? When you live with the person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? Okay, so I was with some friends last weekend. We were at Melrose Trading Post shopping, and so one of my friends, she's in New York. She's from New York. She's visiting. She's Veganizing, if you guys know her from Instagram. Vegan, like straight up in an Instagram day. Very vegan. And we're shopping, and we started talking to these guys because we were looking at their sunglasses. 2 black guys, and something comes up. I said something about, oh, this is my friends. We're the vegan crew. And the guy who was selling the sunglasses, young black man, he was like, oh my God, I'm vegan too. I was like, yes, stop it. And then, lo and behold, his friend who was just stopping by to say hi to him was also vegan.
That's so cool.
And I'm like, girl, you better talk to one of these guys, because one of my girlfriends is single, the one vegan single. But, oh my God, so more and more people, period, are vegan. Also men, the ones you less expect to be vegan, more and more men, especially black men also, yes. So I think that part, I mean, I'm not dating, but I do think it is getting easier from like anecdotal stuff, what I'm seeing on Instagram. Oh my goodness, it's changing so much.
And a lot of people have seen What the Health too.
Yes,
So
everybody.
people, if they're not vegan yet, they kind of have an idea of what it is. But someone should start a vegan dating app. That would be a really good idea.
I think someone is.
Like
I don't know. I think I got an email about it. Like someone was like saying that they were starting it.
That's so smart.
It's got to be like really like cool, right?
Yeah.
What's the other one? Okay, Cupid. That's the one a lot of people use, right?
Yeah.
But isn't it crazy how the second you meet someone else who's vegan, you feel like you're instantly best friends?
Yes.
You just like get each other. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't have to explain anything to you. I don't have to pretend or be awkward with you. We're just like, we get it.
It's like when some people who go to church, there's already like a foundation of beliefs and systems of like how you look at things, and you just bond instantly. We need a vegan church. Yeah, right?
Amen to that.
We have one more question. I think we only have a couple minutes left.
I know.
Hi guys. I have a YouTube channel too. I don't know. I do Ladle by Ladle, the eating disorder vegan recovery YouTube channel. And I'm so happy to finally meet you guys. My question kind of ties all of that together. So this will be my first holiday season as a vegan, going to my boyfriend's family's house and not my own. My own family is somewhat supportive, and his family is hardcore Italian from Staten Island, not at all supportive of vegetarian, vegan stuff. So how do you guys deal? I know you're married, you guys all have boyfriends. How do you deal with their family if they're not so supportive?
I feel like Nicole would have a good...
So for me, when I feel overwhelmed, I kind of lose my words. So something that I always try to do is to watch a documentary or some YouTube videos literally the day of, even if I've already seen them, because then I get the numbers in my head. I get a couple different angles I can go over with people, and it's fresh in my mind, and it makes me feel confident. And the other thing is to remember that the goal isn't. One of my favorite podcasters says that Colleen Patrick Goudreau says that veganism isn't necessarily the goal. The goal is compassion, and veganism is part of compassion. And so what I try to do when I'm in an uncomfortable situation like that, where I know I'm going to be scrutinized, I try to show that light and be as compassionate as possible, and let that be the focus more than making everyone be vegan.
That's beautiful.
I am in a very... I'm in a very similar situation, and I've done it like 3 times now, but my boyfriend is not vegan. He's mostly vegan, and his family is absolutely not vegan. They have a very traditional dinner plate, if you will, with an animal and then some kind of vegetable, but the bulk of the meal is an animal-based thing. And so when I'm there, he ends up eating vegan with me out of respect, just so that's easier for his mom and dad to cook for me. And then he'll kind of hover over them in the kitchen, and then I pack my suitcase full of stuff. Like, there's like squeezy oatmeals that are great. I get bananas. As soon as I get off the plane, I'm like, take me to the grocery store. And I get lots of fruits, lots of pretzels, like starchy things that are higher calorie, Lara bars, and just so that if there is an accident where someone pours cream into something or there is an animal cooked into the food, I have a backup. Yeah.
And maybe bring like a sweet potato sole recipe with you and cook for everyone.
That pie though.
So we only have a minute left, so why don't you just quickly tell everyone again where they can get your book, when it's coming out, and about your channel so everyone can find you.
Okay, so if you visit sweetpotatosoul.com and up in the tabs at the top of the website, click Cookbook, and that's how you can find all the info about the cookbook. Like I said, you could find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, all those, online booksellers. So you could just search there if you prefer, or come over to my website first. You can check it out, get some recipes, sign up for my newsletter. I send a newsletter every week also, so sign up for that. I send more recipes and inspiration and all sorts of good stuff in that. And everything is there on my website at sweetpotatosoul.com.
Thank you so much. And you can find our show, The Vegan View, on YouTube. We also have a Facebook group called The Vegan View where we post recipes, and we have a community where we can talk about these types of things all the time. And we encourage all of you to come and find us, watch us there. And we're going to do a little meet and greet probably right around the corner if you guys have any more questions after this.
And don't forget to subscribe to our individual channels. We have DANI.
Yeah, Dani, Lauren.
I have Lose Your Veganity.
Mine's called Nikki Vegan.
And mine's just my name, Hannah Hagler.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.